African women have always contributed to the development of their communities at the national and international level. There, however, is a glaring need to equip African women with the tools to participate in leadership and empowerment in order for them to respond to challenges faced by their own development, shaping of their own destinies, and have a choice in key issues that affect them. Since 1985, Akina Mama wa Africa, an international Pan-African non-governmental development organization for African women, which has its headquarters in Kampala, Uganda, has become one of the most recognized international development NGOs led by African women and run for African women both on the African continent and Europe. Translated from Swahili, the name Akina Mama wa Africa symbolizes the principles of sisterhood on which the organization was based.
Akina Mama is unique in the sense that it is an African women's organization, but it is also women-led. The mere fact that Akina Mama's programs are developed by African women for African women is also very peculiar and very important, given the way African women are actually in the process of carving a very strategic and important niche for themselves, but also identity for themselves. So the mere fact that we have an African women-led organization that is looking into usually male-dominated leadership arena is something that we very much celebrate.
The intentions of starting the organization was to provide a space for African women to be able to come together and speak for themselves on issues that concern them as African women. When it started in the UK amongst women who were living in the diaspora, and these were professionals, some were students, some were housewives, so they needed to create a space where they could come together and look at the issues that were affecting them as women in the UK.
Since its inception, Akina Mama wa Africa has been focused on equipping African women with the tools to participate in leadership and empowering them to have a voice in key issues that affect them.
I knew about inequalities, I knew about injustices, I'd done a bit about it, but with Akina Mama and Auli, that was when everything crystallized, and it has become a platform where women from across Africa, regardless of race, tribe, religion, where we've come together, where sisterhood is important. Sisterhood is the number one tribe for us, where Africa is critical, and all of us are looking at how do we make Africa a bit more just, a bit more equitable, where human rights apply to everybody, not just to specific people.
And in keeping with the objectives of improving women's leadership capacity, the organization started providing leadership training to African women through the African Women's Leadership Institute, a regional networking, information and training forum that not only seeks to facilitate African women to achieve personal empowerment, but develops their critical thinking in all spheres of life.
The women who came together to form the organization decided that the leadership training, the conventional type of leadership training, was not what the African women needed. They came up with a framework, which is a POT framework. P, when it started, was for personal empowerment, O was for organizational development, and T for transfer of skills. They believed that they needed to come up with a framework that was based on African women's lived experiences and realities in order for the woman to be able to do leadership that will promote social transformation.
The African Women's Leadership Institute prepares African women for qualitative participation in policy and decision-making at local, national and international levels, thereby informing policies and processes that impact on their lives.
I think what makes the work of Akina Mama very particular across the region is that first is the ideology of feminism. Feminism has a very bad reputation, but nevertheless, Akina Mama is working through this ideology, and it is good because working with that gives us more knowledge around this specific African feminism. It gives more tools. It gives also more capacity to understand the barriers, structural barriers from an African perspective.
The training forum is renowned for its holistic leadership training framework, and many alumni from the African Women's Leadership Institute training have gone on to occupy positions of leadership in their countries as well as in the various African regions. Majority remain influential in advocating for women's issues in the various spheres of livelihood.
Our LEAD program is all-rounded. So in terms of getting the awareness, even I as Rachel, in terms of being able to exploit and thrash out leadership capacities is something that I would say Auli is good at. During the training, we had very good and great facilitators. I recall Professor Akihiri, who is a renowned gender equality specialist in Makerere University. We also had Fumi. So these are facilitators who are able to work with you and pull that out. Because many times as young women, we have the skills, we have it, but it still stays inside. So it needs to come out.
During that training, the sessions that spoke to me, that reshaped me, that gave me another lease of life as a woman, and happily so. Among other things, I'm a war widow. I was so traumatized. I couldn't speak. I lost self-confidence. I did not know how my life would be and what the future of these kids would be. So I was a very bitter woman. But the personal mastery module made me come out of this bitterness, made me to appreciate and love myself for who I am.
I had never expected that I can be a leader, that I can be able to direct a team, and also through that team reach out to grassroots women. And because of the Auli, because of the training, I made at that time it was a very hard decision to get away from my previous job, because I was previously a counselor, to start an organization. Yeah, and I promised in the Auli that I would want to work with the women directly so that I can be able to touch their hearts, their souls, but most importantly to enable them become part of a changing society.
With hundreds of alumni who have already attended the leadership trainings, Akina Mama Africa is developing and aiming to sustain a strong community of alumni, also known as Amazons, for further learning, support and collaboration. This will connect the alumni to take collective actions to advance the rights of African women on the African continent and beyond.
Predominantly, we have been targeting women that are working in NGOs, because these are the women that are working to promote and protect women's rights. But we've also targeted women in the public sector, because government makes the rules and regulations. They provide the framework through which the women's organizations operate. So we've had a lot of women from the public sector as well attend our training. But we are also looking at doing business unusual, because we believe as Akina Mama that we need to be able to have women who have that transformational agenda and to be able to promote issues of gender justice in other sectors as well. So we are looking at the private sector. We are also now venturing with working with women in the trade unions, because we realize that we need to grow.
Since the first African Women's Leadership Institute training was held in Uganda almost 15 years ago, Akina Mama Africa has organized a number of regional, sub-regional and national leadership institutes across 35 countries in Africa and the United Kingdom.
We have had women who, after attending our leadership institutes, said that they went and formed their own organizations in areas where they identified gaps in their different communities. We have had women who testify to the fact that after the leadership training, they felt something had been unleashed in them to be able to challenge issues of the protection and the promotion of women's rights. Others have actually been inspired to go into politics. So I think for us, those are some of the achievements.
Over the years, Akina Mama wa Africa has grown into a Pan-African international development organization and an NGO in consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council that focuses on women's leadership development and policy influencing in the United Kingdom, Europe, and Africa.
One of the unique factors about the Akina Mama Africa is that they spread the knowledge. They spread the information across nations, across continents, and they don't only do that, but they follow up to see what is going on with the people that we have taught. After me deciding to found Women Rights Initiative, I went back to AMA and said, you know what, people, I think this is a good idea for me, but I am not doing it anywhere because I want to do it at an area where there are not so many women's organizations, where it is going to be a new idea, but I want to do it there because I know that women there will appreciate it, will love it, and they have given me the technical support. So I think that the uniqueness about it is that they don't stop at training. They have always sent us information. They have always been giving us their newsletters. They have been passing on their new programs. They have been engaging us in refresher courses, which to me is a good element.
Akina Mama, that I experienced made me build a strong network within Uganda and outside. It also enabled me to conceive the idea of the Regional Associates for Community Initiatives. It's a small organization that I now, identify with, and it was as a result of my experience in that Akina Mama Africa Leadership Institute, where I strongly believed that I was boxed in these institutions where I was working. I really appreciate them. But I was boxed. I couldn't think outside the box. I had to think within the box institutionally. I used to have a lot of challenge with it. So Akina Mama Africa Leadership Training Institute made me break out of the box and live outside the box and without the box. So to me, that was very powerful.
One of the other aspects of our work is around advocacy. And in advocacy, you cannot do advocacy alone. So we have partners either at the national level, at the sub-regional level, as well as the Pan-African level. So we work with different women's organizations. We belong to coalitions, we belong to networks, and we also belong to groupings of other civil society organizations. Some are even mainstream organizations.
Akina Mama has always given us the platform, as Urgent Action Fund Africa to consult them, but also to bring ideas that we believe will be able to propel the African women's leadership agenda. In fact, with the pilot program that we are running here at Urgent Action Fund Africa that we're calling the Women's Leadership and Mentoring Initiative, we are very much working in sync and in collaboration with Akina Mama, and we believe that after the pilot program they will be able to carry forward some of the innovative models that we are actually going to be piloting over the 4 years.
We are working with Akina Mama, specifically peace building processes, trying to see how we can involve women. That's why we are working with Akina Mama to strengthen women, to give them skills in terms of communication, in terms of networking, in terms of team building, to allow them to be ready to take part of this negotiation.
Akina Mama Africa is a member of FEMNET. As part of them being a member of FEMNET, we are also partners. And in that regard, we have implemented projects together. For example, the UN Commission on the Status of Women, CSW, which we talked about in the conference, is a space where African women actually go to review the Beijing Platform for Action and how far we have gone. And so FEMNET, together with Akina Mama Africa and other continent organizations, mobilize African women to actually participate in that space and influence policies at that level.
Today, Akina Mama Africa continues to contribute to the growing voice of African women in advocating for their rights by forming strategic partnerships. In the coming period, Akina Mama Africa looks to expanding its African geographical representation physically, with the aim of advancing and grounding African feminist transformative leadership practices and lessons learned across the continent.
We could not do without an Akina Mama on the continent. I think Akina Mama has carved a very strategic and important niche in women's leadership, and with that we have actually celebrated the role that Akina Mama has played over the years, particularly insofar as grooming young women into leadership positions. In fact, most of the women leaders that you see across the continent, across various sectors as well, have in one way or the other worked with Akina Mama, either as allies but also as alumni of the Oli Institute.